Finance Committee report.
We had a fairly tame Finance Committee meeting 3 weeks ago, and I think things were fairly benign. Basically, we just received reports. If you want to look into them, you can. Talked about an update on the recruiting for SITLA. Not SITLA, School Land Trust Section Director. Hopefully we'll have some more on that soon. Probably the most interesting thing is, I think it's important to understand, is that all buses that transport students, private, charter, or district in the state of Utah, have to meet standards imposed by UDOT, which is a substantial portion of the regulation of public education that's not controlled by the state school board. But they have Utah Highway Patrol officers that do those inspections. They came and expressed how they do that review to us and how that process works. It does seem that the smaller charter schools and private schools do struggle to meet those standards. You'll see things like they will simply, oh, here's a great bus that we can buy, and it's a really good deal. And you can buy it, and then unfortunately after you buy it, realize that there's needs $10,000, $20,000 in improvements to make standards. What we decided in the committee is basically we just don't want the surprise. We don't want that to happen. We want people to be aware of the standards, and so they're not buying buses that, you know, can be a money trap or a money pit. So we're going to try and more proactively let all of our schools know about these standards and bus standards and the consequences, both, you know, the discipline and safety risk of using buses that don't meet those standards. Washington County School District has been under some corrective action and audit for some time. They are now done with that, to their credit. And so we are going to develop an audit closure response template letter. And just to kind of help, after any district or charter school has gone through that, they can, you know, kind of say, we've done it, here's the feedback, and now it's over. So it's not ongoing, and they can have a sense of closure. This is a bit harder, I'll just admit, because it's been like 3 weeks, and, you know, I don't remember it quite as well.
That's what's nice to have this little script here that
it is, but I wonder if I'm doing it as much justice. But, you know, then we got more.
We'll help you
if
you're missing something.
Thank you, Chair Huntsman. Thank you. We have budget to hire with special education. We've been contracting it out. We've been doing some in-house. We have more budget. We're going to be hiring 2 more staff members to help with special education kind of training and compliance. That you know, once again, didn't require a vote. We accepted that's what they're doing. School level reporting. This is where we probably had the most discussion by far, and this is a issue I think of some interest. In districts or small or charter schools, we get essentially reporting at the school level. While I have 4 of my children at Alpine School District, which is the largest school district in the state of Utah with almost 79,000 students, you know, so when we get a district level report, that tells us nothing, you know, essentially about how American Fork High School is doing or Mountain Ridge Junior High is doing. And American Fork High School, where I have 2 sons attending, has almost 2,500 students, meaning they're bigger than, you know, most charter schools and a number of rural districts. To what extent should we know? what they are doing at the high school level, given they are that much bigger. Well, Alpine School District can say, well, this is what you require, this is what we do, and we have plenty of other good things to do, which I think makes sense. So we are looking at that, at a report on to what extent to kind of, potentially break that down and find out more reporting requirements. Is that good? Is it bad? Talk to members of the Finance Committee if you have thoughts on that. The next one, I think this is the one. This is one that we'd actually have the rest of you guys vote on. This was the only item. We have, the legislature has class size reduction funds. And you might think that's unequivocally good. Maybe it could be, but it's complicated in our administration of it and who gets it. And, once again, this is the eternal debate. It would just be better in the WPU. So there we've been, and this is, I think it's worth, I don't think this is controversial. It is obviously controversial whether additional funds and class size reduction produce results. And it could be a major issue on the ballot this next time around. So what does the data show? I mean, we have substantial money from the legislature used to reduce class size. What does it mean? Is it just, I mean, if it doesn't do anything, then why don't we just put it in the WPU? If it does do something, then I think that's something we ought to be sharing with the Utah voters and with the whole education community. Do we have any data after this grand experiment and millions of dollars showing that it's producing something, if anything? So basically, we're submitting the required report to the legislature in November, and we asked that the report's executive summary should specify that the class size reduction is not reducing class sizes but maintaining, and the value over time is less effective. We want them to basically be more blunt and bold. So we wanted kind of to make it more complicated, but for now we're just going to submit what is required to the legislature. So I think the motion is that the board approve the submission to the legislature, and then we will share that after it's submitted to the legislature with the board in November. Is that now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah.
It is November. Are we sharing it with the board? Is it on board? Natalie, you want to come and talk about that? We've seen it. It's already in our
Yeah.
packets online.
So we approved the submission to the legislature. Natalie, do you want to speak to this? There's a couple of
So we already did it.
Couple-
So can the board vote on it now if we've
Yeah.
already done it?
Okay.
All right.
Natalie.
Just so for information, an updated report has been put into board docs. I believe it's an information item in the Finance Committee. Staff largely just updated it for all of those LEAs who hadn't submitted, but after the last board meeting now have completed their submissions. And I just double checked with my staff to make sure that they made the requested changes to the executive summary. We didn't have the minutes to look at until today. So if that hasn't been updated, we'll do it today and then re-upload the document. But it was sent to executive appropriations committees or to legislative staff, I believe, yesterday with the rest of the legislative reports in order to make the October 31st deadline that's required in statute. But we can send amended reports if necessary, so we're not concerned about that.
And Natalie, I guess the $64 question is, do we have data showing the effect of class size reduction?
Okay.
So I know it's been 3 weeks since we had this conversation. So the report that was provided to you is a statistical and data summary only. It was not meant to be a performance report or an audit report. I believe a request was made by the Finance Committee to look into what that would require, or if we already had other staff engaged in that. And so again, this is just the statistical report that's required by code. Anything further would be discussed and evaluated and planned for in the upcoming months, especially now that we have Jill on staff. So.
The answer is we do not. We have lots of data here at the State Office of Education, but we might not have the answer to that.
Okay, let's go back to the motion that came out of our committee, if we could. the committee moved that the board approve the submission to the legislature. And it's been amended because we added a couple other schools that were late on that. But it's the report that's before you. I believe, and I think it's been put, the latest and greatest is put, and we're required to approve that report and submit. So that's where we're at. That has that. Board member Lear and then Belknap.
Mine's a question. I'm not sure who it's for, but I'm wondering if there are specific questions the legislature, is there a form that we have to submit this report on? Or can we be more helpful, more thorough than maybe what's here? Is it directed exactly by the legislature? And I have a follow-up to that too, please.
Okay.
So I can't pull it up right now because I can't talk and drive at the same time. The form that we send to the LEAs is largely, it asks them to report how much of their own funds they contributed towards hiring teachers for class size, the number of teachers or number of FTEs, because reading coaches or paraprofessionals are also allowed or authorized uses of the funds. Within the class size line item, if the LEAs meet all of the statutory requirements for the use of funds, then they can use a percentage of those dollars for building costs. And so we ask LEAs to report if they have used any of those funds for building costs. So largely this is a statistical report. It takes a lot of time to gather both on our end and on the LEA side. It's a pretty substantial burden just because linking the FTE costs with the appropriations are not always cut and dry. I believe the report also includes a request of the LEAs to tell us the number of FTEs or paraprofessionals that were hired with K-3 funds and also with Title I funds, if I remember correctly. So the focus is largely on class size because that's the biggest part, but there are two other programs involved in this statistical report. Data.
Okay. Before your follow-up, Superintendent Dixon.
If I could just add that answer, I think you asked a good question about, are we directed on how we report? And, excuse me, over the last couple of years, the legislature, depending on whether it's the LFAs or under the direction of public ed appropriations chairs or executive appropriations, have been more dictatorial about the format and exactly how much they want to see. And then staff always tries to provide backup documentation and links to other data, but they've become very specific about how they want to receive that information.
Okay, follow up.
And my point is, I don't know if this is the report or if there is an opportunity, but I know there are data about teacher satisfaction based on smaller class sizes.
That's not.
And if this is not the place for that report,
I'll let Natalie speak.
I would
To your
hope
follow-up.
that at some point we can communicate. I know that's maybe what are maybe softer data or softer numbers, but it seems like at some point there should be an opportunity to let the legislature know, at least publicly. I think some of them may know, but at least make a public statement that there are other factors other than numbers about class size reduction that are crucial to actual people in schools. But Natalie, if there's more to say, please.
Okay, Natalie.
I think the only thing that I would add is at this point, this data collection is solely prescribed by statute. There's always opportunity to provide narrative, to provide the correlation of data to achievements, to outcomes. That's largely the nature of the conversation that we had in the Finance Committee, is that there is always an opportunity, and now that we have a staff on hand that can help them prepare some of those correlations, if that's an item that's prioritized for their work, that's something that we could get going on. However, there are lots of things that we have planned for our fiscal policy analyst in addition to existing staff. And so trying to figure out how we balance those requests out before the legislative session was an issue that we will bring to the superintendency and have them prioritize for us.
Okay. Board Member Belknap.
My questions have been answered. Thank you.
Okay. So what's required of us is that, well, I'll go back to the motion that came from the committee, that the committee moved it. Oh, okay. Board Member Cannon.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. So this class size reduction money has been in play for a long time. And I think it's significant to note that it is just a crucial problem in many parts of Utah, but it's not a crucial problem in some parts of Utah. However, I imagined, it's my guess that in order to get this passed, they gave money for class size reduction to everyone. And so it's a little frustrating to me that we have Daggett and Paiute, where they have hardly any students getting class size reduction funds. We also have charter schools who are able to limit their class sizes. Yay, you know, but they're also getting class size reduction funds. And so I think what we have here is a report on how this money was used by everybody across the board, but it's not really targeted to reduce class sizes, and we don't have that reporting capability in place yet. So there are some things that could be improved if we really want to reduce class sizes in Utah. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other lights. We're back to the committee. Move that the board approve the submission to the legislature. And I can't remember the part and share it with the board. It's already been shared, so we can include that in there. The committee moves that the board approve submission to the legislature and share it with the board in November. It's already been done. So that's a motion. Or no, is there any other discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, voting was unanimous. Is there anything else?
And then we just had some requests for data information, and that's all. Thank you.
Okay, it's real important that I go back to one part of this. Board Member Wright chaired the meeting, and that you did a good job here. But one thing under 1.7, under the Utah Program Improvement Planning System, Special Education Monitoring and Monitoring Contractors. Just quickly, just a little bit of background on this. This was kind of initiated by Board Member Hanson to just take a look at this. We had a lot of contractors that we were working with, and an outcome that came from that, from all of this evaluation, was that it would best serve the LEAs and the organization to bring on a couple additional full-time staff. The recommendation that was made is from the committee action started off that we directed staff to act on that, but then it was brought to our attention that they're not our staff. So we didn't direct staff to act. They already have the power and authority to act within their organization, and it's not a committee or this board that does that hiring and firing. Just for clarity as we're moving forward with other reports coming to us as they're adding an FTE or taking away, we're not in that. We have very limited participation on the hiring on that, and so just wanted to add that clarity to that.
Cammie has already made the correction.
And so we're making the corrections. Deputy Superintendent Jones?
That's just it. We made the correction.
Okay. But I just wanted to make sure everyone here knew that we're not in that. That's not our responsibility. Okay, thank you. That concludes the report. Let's take a quick break. 10, 15 minutes. We're ahead of schedule.
Just say 5 minutes.
I louder than I did. So let's have about a 10 to 15 minutes. As soon as you're back, we'll get started.